Rise Spotlight series that we're doing.
Thank you.
I'm
Awesome.
Trevor Park. I am the VP of Marketing at Digital, and I'm happy to have you. I'm really excited for this conversation. So
Awesome.
I want to let you do a little intro, who you are, what you're with, what you do for Widewail, and we'll dive in.
Cool. So Katie Ritter, I'm the National Director of Multifamily at Widewail, and we'll get into this a little bit, but multifamily is one of two verticals at Widewail. So I'm on the sales team, but I also work with our product, customer experience team to make sure that we're delivering a multifamily specific experience for our customers. And
Cool.
Diving into, making sure we're educated on the space and up to date and all of those good things. So I love it. Yeah. And this industry has been fantastic. Great people, yourself included, and so welcoming to us as well. So it's been great.
Thank you. And we love having you in this space. And I want to jump right into, you mentioned the two verticals, and this is something that I always thought was interesting, is auto is the other side that you guys are in. And when I think of the people that you're selling to on the auto side, it's car salesmen and people that sell cars. That's the only correlation I can draw to selling homes, and I wouldn't put them in the same category necessarily. How did that leap happen? How is it one day it's I want to sell to the apartments now?
Yeah. So our founder and CEO Matt grew up, or his whole career has been in the automotive digital marketing industry, and our mission was this idea of building trust between businesses and the communities they serve. And if you think of one of the largest local businesses, it's a car dealership. So that's how we started in automotive. And we started by helping those dealers respond to their reviews. And that was we had a team of real people, we're out of Burlington, Vermont, team of real people in Vermont, and they were responding to the positives and then helping the teams respond to the negatives. Suggesting a response, saying, hey, based on our expertise, we're a third party, this is what you should say. And the leap happened, so we started servicing response, and then we got into integrating with dealer management systems to ask for reviews. And we found that just by asking, more positive people got online to engage in the conversation, right?
Yeah.
Negative people are so willing to go online and leave that feedback. So BH, actually, there's another Burlington company that we're connected with, and we got connected to BH. They were looking outside of the industry to find a reputation solution, and we got connected and support their portfolio. And so it was a client-led, sort of landed this client, and then Matt said, okay, Katie, here we go.
Start learning.
Let's go figure this out. I think this can be our next vertical, because you think about another local business.
Yeah.
There are communities with their own Google business profiles. It's a location-based search. And what we found, the correlation is it's a considered purchase. So if people are buying a car, people are choosing where to live, this idea of trust is really important. They ask their peers, they listen to the aggregate opinion of their peers, and so reviews, when it comes to a place to live, really played a key role in that. So when we think of considered purchases, buying a car, where to live, that's the connection we found of, okay, we're not, yes, of course the community is going to say this is the best place to live in the area.
Yeah.
People are looking to their peers.
Yeah.
So, and what I found was, looking at the difference though in multifamily is you buy a car, you drive it off the lot, you have a great experience, you leave a review. You have residence for a whole year.
Yeah.
So you have to figure out when to ask and what type of experience you want to deliver. And so there's gonna be something that goes wrong.
Yeah.
And so you have to deal with that. But I found that a lot of those interactions were happening in surveys and not as much out loud in the open on public review sites. So that's been what we've been talking to clients and the industry about is to start to have those conversations out in the open and online where people can see and start to build that trust.
Super cool. So then talk to me a little bit about the differentiator that you kind of you teased with me a little earlier, is that there's a lot of data that goes into going through this. When I was on the property side, it was roughly 250 communities that I oversaw, and one community was too much for me to manage those reviews, let alone multiple. How are you guys helping manage that component for your guys' clients? And is there an aggregate that you guys pull through, or how is that data shared back?
Yeah, so our own platform aggregates all of the reviews across the portfolio. And that's the other thing is, coming from automotive dealerships, there's hundreds of transactions a day. And so you're seeing 50, 80 reviews a month in one location. So in terms of scale, like we already were dealing with a really high transaction industry. So applying it here, while yes, there's more locations spread out for one client in a portfolio, we're able to handle the volume of transactions or interactions just because we've come from a really high volume industry. So the data comes in, the reviews come in, and then what we do is we use the LLM, natural language processing, to tag them. So we have 49 topics that we tag up, and we can say, okay, this topic, let's use leasing process, for example, was mentioned in 50% of your reviews, and 30% of them were positive and 20% were negative. So we can start to track how often these topics come up, whether they're in positive or negative reviews. And then, we were talking about this earlier, it's not just someone saying the leasing process was great. It's, I got all my questions answered during the tour, or I called and my questions were answered, or the application process was really easy. All of that feeds into the leasing process. So now we can say, okay, are we delivering a positive experience? We'll use leasing process as our example. Are we delivering a positive experience here? Is it coming up in our reviews? And so now you can start to track it. And if there's a problem, if you're starting to see, communication issues, I can't get in touch with anyone, no one's answering the phone, and we implement a leasing assistant, are those negative mentions going down quarter over quarter? And now we can assign numbers. So does that make sense? So 30% decrease in complaints about communication quarter over quarter after we implemented this tool.
And are you able to, so in the reporting then, are you able to say specifically if you're looking at the dashboard, you can tag a specific time frame and notate? That's super interesting. So
so we actually just added this too. So yes, you can grab a time frame, any time frame, see the most mentioned topics, and then you can click on it and say, here's the rating across tour, move-in, renewal, and maintenance, and move out. So those 5 life cycle stages, you can say communication came up in maintenance, and the average rating of those reviews that was mentioned was a 2.5. So you can start to track it over life cycle stages as well. And then, if you want to get really into it, you can compare it to your peers. So we looked at 400,000 reviews, and we can see how often leasing process comes up in negative reviews. And so let's say across the industry, I don't have the number off the top of my head, I should have, but 12%, let's say, it comes up in 12% of your negative reviews. If the leasing process is coming up in 30% of my negative reviews, you're over the industry benchmark. So you can start to benchmark it against what the average mention of that topic is.
So now I have a question then, I feel like I don't see, you guys, I feel like we're the ones that opens my eyes to this at MME, of establishing a reputation benchmark across the board. Has this not really been widely distributed out before you all started tackling that?
I think I hadn't seen it when it comes to topics. So we haven't been able to really try to capture, how often do ambiance or aesthetics come up? And we hadn't seen it. So we started tackling this idea, and it was, what I love about it is in multifamily, like I said, because you have people for 365 days, this idea of digging into each element of the resident experience is so important. And so multifamily became our lead in to trying to establish those benchmarks.
That's cool.
Now automotive is doing it too. So it's just fun that was the entry point there was MME and coming up with those benchmarks. But no, to answer your question, I hadn't seen the benchmarking.
That's super interesting. I don't remember seeing it broken down to that degree. Like obviously, like there's been like average sentiment and average reputation on a property level.
Yeah.
But never, or at least I don't recall seeing something that goes deeper than that. And that's, I think, like it creates a layer of like being more actionable to actually make changes to what needs to happen. So that's really interesting.
Totally.
I want to also jump into kind of like what's the future look like? Like where's Widewail going? Is there a new vertical that you guys are looking at? Are you guys pretty locked into just automotive multifamily? What's 2025 looking like?
If you ask Jake, he's like, absolutely not. We're not. Or he's our director of marketing. He's like, no more new verticals. This is bad. But we're hyper focused on these two right now. Yeah. The next phase of this is adding surveys, so private surveys. So really getting that 360-degree view of the resident experience and being able to measure it from both private and public feedback. Yeah. We started with public because that's the content that is influencing.
Totally.
There's a really good TED Talk, Rachel Botsman. She's a trust fellow at Oxford. And she had a TED Talk in 2016 that was kind of the impetus of all of this trust. And it was basically like we've stopped trusting institutions and started trusting strangers. And Airbnb, you don't trust the host to be like, amazing place to stay, come over. You trust the 200 reviews that were left there. So focusing on the feedback that influences your prospects and your residents, working out loud, that concept. And then, being able to marry that with private survey data at the same time.
Super cool.
To create that full 360-degree picture. So that's coming down the pipe.
That's exciting. And I think the surveying tool is definitely something that, from a retention standpoint, also gives you like a really good understanding and ideally could be played into forecasting as to what is our retention going to look like after the course of this year. Do we have all of our renewals locked in? Is the sentiment from the survey that we're sending out prior to the renewals going out positive? The ones that are negative, do we know if we're going to be able to keep those or not? Having that ability to kind of start predicting your revenue stream based off of overall sentiment and reputation of the community, I think is super powerful. So that's cool.
Very excited.
I also like you guys, I would say, launched one of the more unique podcasts this year.
Okay,
but in the grand scheme of it, there's definitely a lot of conversations happening, and I think all of them have really great weight to the purpose and intent of each of the podcasts. I think you all taking it from a direction on the feedback loop side and the play on feedback fatigue, I think is also really, really cool. Talk to us a little bit about like what inspired going this route with the podcast and what's on I think you guys are midway through season 1.
Yeah. So season 1, we were actually at MME and there was a discussion about how to use feedback, and at the table someone said, I have feedback fatigue. And there was this like collective connection of like, there's just so much of it. And your Apple Watch telling you when to stand up, you're constantly getting feedback. And it almost feels like something you have to wrangle and control and operationalize in a way that's effective for every team. So we got curious about how people were doing this and what operators were doing to take that feedback and then how they're actually making change. Because I think, and this was mentioned in one of the sessions, was if you're collecting feedback and just it's sitting there and not making change, you're not going to get more of it. People are like, why would I take time to tell you something that like isn't going to get fixed? Exactly. So that's what started it. And Jake and I we did a webinar earlier this year with our Voice of the Resident report after analyzing those reviews. And we had a blast. It was fun. Like, we're also good friends. And so part of it was, okay, let's let's do this to talk to people who are doing it daily, but also a way for folks to get to know us a little bit more, our personalities, who we are, and what we're all about. So,
and I don't think people know this, but Jake's pretty funny. like
yes.
The blooper reels that you I think you shared recently were just hilarious, and then your guys' intros, you guys have such a great rapport, like just pulling more information out of each other and pulling more characters out of each other. That I think that also is like a really refreshing model than just like the single talking heads. No offense to any of the other podcasts. I really like the dynamic that you guys have brought to it, and it brings like a nice levity and humor to the intros. So it's fun.
That's nice. I'm glad you said that because we were on Digital Dudes and really liked how they chatted before the episode started. So the inspiration was from Digital Dudes. So
I'll make sure to share that.
Make sure
with
you
David
share that. You share it with them. But and I think part of my whole, I love listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
And they're not always to like learn something new. It's a place I want it to be a place to like rest a little bit and be able to laugh a little bit, where you're not feeling like there's this information imbalance and you have to constantly learn something. It's just a place to just laugh and connect and with someone. So I'm glad to hear you say that, because I did say that to Jake. I was like, I think we can show our personalities a little bit and
keep going that direction. I think that's really fun to like hear that approach. And I also, there was one where I don't know if it was Jake, and he was like, I don't know how to start this up.
It's like,
do I just go?
Do I just dive right in? What do we do?
Like, do we just do it? And it instantly calls back to what is it? Is it Tina Fey and Superstars? Where she's like, I don't know what to do with my hands. And so I'm just like, it's so perfect, because it's like, even when I'm like, as I say that now I'm so aware of my hands.
What do I do?
But I think the way that everybody watching, go check it out. It's really good.
Thank you.
I'm excited for the next season as well, because you unveiled all of the episodes in advance, which I think is also really unique in how you approach it. It's like, hey, we recorded all these episodes, but we're going to slow roll them out. But here's everything that you can get excited about, instead of just being like, hey, we have this one coming up.
Yeah.
And that approach also shows that you can get invested into it. I think that's also where it's like, I think I've started 3 podcasts since joining Multifamily, and all of them have like 4 episodes, 5 episodes max. And then I'll either change job or I'm like, this is a topic that's not going anywhere.
Yeah. And
you've thought out the season in advance, which I think is also unique and really cool. Do you have ideas as to what season 2 is going to hold?
I'm curious your thoughts, but yes, I think the reason we did that was we didn't want to get into the scramble of being behind or not finishing something. And so we did season 1. I think I'm interested in also potentially for season 2 bringing in different industries. So we did have CMO of Pink Taco on one of the episodes, which I know you listened to.
Yeah. I even commented on your Spotify. I'm like, how are you guys not eating tacos when you're having this podcast?
And so I think there's a lot of just ways to learn from other industries. And maybe, I don't think the concept of, for that example, like Pink Taco, I don't think the concept of good operations is the best marketing strategy is like anything new for multifamily, but it's just a different way to think about it. Like one of my favorite examples from him was, I thought I created this amazing margarita special. Turns out the drinks were a pain in the ass to make. It was taking forever. Like the bar was backed up. And so operationally, if we can't deliver on what we're marketing or what we're saying, we can't do it. So that idea of consistency and making sure what you're saying is what's happening on site. It's just a different example in different industries. So I'm interested in expanding a little bit outside of multifamily too, and getting more of that. And then, I have like these ideas of like, bring on your like worst piece of feedback you've ever gotten.
Oh, that would be fun too.
Or like telling, just like kind of hearing a little bit more about people's personal feedback journey.
Definitely. Or even just like the approach of like, hey, you got shitty feedback.
Yeah.
What did you do with it? Like, how did you come back from that? Or what did you, like what did you learn from that and how was it applied?
Yeah.
Like that would be super interesting, and then it would
Yeah.
provide some like tactile like approach that people could take. It was like, oh, I also got that kind of feedback.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
we could totally do
Okay,
that.
let's
Yeah.
talk about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. So
I love
some
the idea
ideas.
of the outside industry too, because I think one of the things that I constantly come up against is like we're brain surgeons. Like it's rocket science. Like you have to be perfect. It has to be immediate. And just even listening to the Pink Taco one, I'm just like, oh, you sub out a restaurant goer, like a customer, with a prospect that's trying to lease. And it's kind of a similar correlation. If like you still want to provide good service and you still want to provide them with seamless interactions and zero friction to actually order their food. Same thing
Yep.
with like being able to get their apartment. And this is how it affected customer sentiment. Yeah, that's a direct correlation that you
Yeah.
can apply there. And I think that also helps kind of normalize what we're doing in the sense that like we're still engaging with humans as it comes
Totally.
across that. So yeah, I love that idea.
Yeah, totally.
Cool.
Thanks
Yeah.
for the endorsement.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Well, this is awesome.
Appreciate
How
it.
can people find you, get in touch with you? What's the best way to reach
Yeah,
out?
Widewail, and I have heard that people are like, is it wide wall? Is it wide as in like whale, like beluga whale, but it's spelled Widewail. So widewail.com. Katie Ritter on LinkedIn. The data or voice of the resident report is widewail.com/data. Again, Widewail. I spell it all the time on like calls. I'm like, yep, this wide what? So that's where to find us. And thanks so much for having us on.
Yeah, thank you for coming on.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.